Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is set for one episode. Your host from Columbus, Ohio, is Michael Kirk. Welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast. Hello and welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast, your digital audio dirt sheet for all things Super Show. As I record this, we are less than 1 week away from Virtual GenCon weekend. That's right. It is the 26th of July, and on the 31st of July will be the kickoff to GenCon weekend. The match card for GenCon weekend is taking shape. I'll go into that in just a moment, but there is both good news in the Super Show and bad news in the Super Show that I need to address. We'll start with the bad news. Grand Gathering 2, set to take place in September of this year, has been canceled. It will be converted, like the original Grand Gathering 2, to an online event, but the actual in-person get-together in Louisville, Kentucky has been canceled. I'm very disappointed to hear this, although I understand the reasons why. Based on the restrictions that would have to be put in place to run the event, it would not be anything like what SRG Universe is trying to run. It wouldn't be anything like the Grand Gathering was last year. So I get it. I understand why the cancellation happened. I'm just disappointed. Pretty much every convention this year has been canceled. I remember previously discussing that I might try to go to either DragonCon or PAX Unplugged. DragonCon has been canceled too. So the only chance this year for there to be an in-person presence convention-wise for SRG is PAX Unplugged. And we don't know what's going on PAX Unplugged. There hasn't been an announcement made if it's going to happen or if it's not going to happen. It's scheduled to happen mid-November. We'll just have to see. I think I'm going to try to go if that happens. But if not, oh well. In the meantime, if you had already signed up for Grand Gathering 2, they have refunded the registration fee in the form of store credit. So it's going to be $120. They actually gave you a little bit extra store credit for buying online from supershowthegame.com. In addition to the store credit, you're also going to be getting 6 promos, 3 foils, and 3 regulars. The 3 regular promos are going to be the gathering the ring steps, gathering the kendo stick, and gathering the steel chair. And from what I understand, the 3 foil cards are going to be the gathering the ladder, gathering the table, gathering the steel chain. Because of the change in the Grand Gathering, going from being in person to virtual, they have opened the registration up. So for people who could not attend in person but want to attend virtually now, if you sign up, it's still going to be a $100 registration fee, but you'll get the whole $100 back in store credit plus the promos. The difference is that if you had signed up before that, you're getting the extra in the store credit on a gift card that will be emailed to you if you're signing up now. If you'd already signed up, it should already have been emailed to you. But that's it for the bad news. Let's talk about the good news. The good news is that SRG Universe has finalized a deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling to create and put out competitor sets based on wrestlers who wrestle for New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is a big deal. This has been in the works since, I believe, last year. I want to say it was last year at Gen Con 2019 when Steve Resk met with the either North American representative or United States representative for New Japan Pro Wrestling. I do not recall the gentleman's name or his title, but that is when the possibility of a collaboration between SRG Universe and New Japan Pro Wrestling first took shape, and now it's a reality. There will be New Japan Pro Wrestling competitors coming out. When and how, We don't know. They did announce to expect something by the end of this year, so sometime in the next 5 months, we should see something involving New Japan Pro Wrestling in the Super Show, but that is huge news for this game. I'm very happy to hear that has finally happened. It's been something we've talked about. I remember the last time Steve was on the show, I asked him about New Japan. Now it is a done deal, and we can expect to see those sometime over the course of the next 5 months. That is what they are projecting, and I hope it comes to fruition. I am not as big a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling as a lot of people are, but I'm excited for something like this to happen. This is the biggest wrestling promotion that SRG Universe has worked with to date. They had worked with House of Glory. They also sponsored a couple wrestling promotions, the Wrestling Revolver being one of them, Capital Pro Wrestling being another. But this is the biggest deal like this to date, so I'm very happy that that has finally come to pass, and I'm looking forward to seeing who comes out. It's a lot of different competitors in New Japan. Okada, of course, is the big one. Will Ospreay's name's been thrown around. I'm not familiar with a bunch of these people. Tamatonga, a bunch of Bullet Club, potentially could be coming to the Super Show. There's a lot of very great possibilities. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm very happy that New Japan is coming to the game. But that's it for the big news outside of Virtual GenCon weekend. The match card for Virtual GenCon weekend is still taking shape. As of right now, here's what we know. We know there's going to be a World Heavyweight Championship match between the current champion, South Bell, and the challenger, Chris Pagillo. The Underworld tournament is down to the final 3. We have Shane Strickland using Trent is a guaranteed finalist. He's made the finals. He will be in the match. We are waiting for the results of Matt Nealon, who's using El Super Hombre, and Eddie Fury, who's using himself. Those two gentlemen have to face off in, I believe, a tables, ladders, and chains match. And then the winner will go on to face Shane Strickland in a match where the stipulation remains unknown. We will not know what the stipulation is until the match takes place. It has been held back. The Tag Team Championship, the Multiplayer Tag Team Championship, is going to be between the Impact team of John Pulverino and Google Docs Dan Page taking on the Dangerous Alliance. That's Chris Payton and Sean Loeb. The Tornado Tag Team Championship is going to be a triple threat. It's John Pulverino versus Hold the Line Harry versus the winner of a triple threat Tornado Tag Team match. The 3 competitors in this match are going to be Ryan Pierce, Mysterious, and Rager Dragon God. That is all we know so far. There's supposed to be a trios tournament, an 8-man tournament to determine who will face Beatstick Brandon for the trios championship. I have not seen who the other 4 men in the tournament are going to be, but that should happen presumably before this weekend, so we will know who will be facing Beatstick Brandon for this trios championship. That's it for the big featured matches at this point. The World Heavyweight Championship tournament is still ongoing. I believe the deadline to have the matches finished and reported to the general manager, John Clace, is this Tuesday, the 28th. So for everyone who is signed up, finish your group matches and email the results to John Clace at srguniverse.com. And then we'll see who the top cut's going to be. The top cut will take place Saturday, August 1st. Friday, July 31st is going to be the Faction Wars draft. On Talk of the Universe, they announced that the Faction Wars will take place virtual Grand Gathering, or whatever they're going to call the replacement online Grand Gathering weekend. Like last year, it will not wrap up Grand Gathering weekend. I am hoping personally that they do not extend it as long as they did this past year. To me, that was too long. I understand why they did it. I disagree with it. But if they're going to extend it past Grand Gathering weekend, and they have announced they are going to have the majority of it done Grand Gathering weekend, if that's 55%, if that's 85%, whatever percentage, it's going to be over half. So I'm imagining the top cut will be determined at least coming out of the Grand Gathering for the Faction Wars. But the Faction Wars draft is taking place on Friday. I believe they said there were 16 teams that are signed up right now for Faction Wars, and they are taking other teams. They will announce the draft order Wednesday on Talking Universe. So if you want to be on a team, either form a team or let the general manager know, John Clace at SRGUniverse.com, that you want to be placed on a team so they can get that done, because the draft will be taking place Friday and the draft order will be set Wednesday. I think we're going to try to do a special doing a draft analysis. I do not know if this is a good idea. We kind of have a bad history with draft analyses on this show. But I'm going to be looking for people who might want to come on and discuss the draft. If you're interested, please let me know. You can reach out to me through Facebook Messenger or email the show, outlawmudcast@gmail.com, because I am looking to put together a panel and discuss the draft. But that's going to be it for the news coming out of Talking Universe and other sources. There will be new releases coming out for Virtual GenCon that will be able to be drafted. So any competitors that are released can be drafted. We did see a new competitor, just the competitor card spoiled. The Goddess of Wrestling, Helen. I will probably look at her once we have the full set of finishers. But I'm assuming with that release, she will be coming out as part of the Virtual GenCon release. The Claim the Throne set and presumably the faction pack for the Three Kings will also be coming out Virtual GenCon weekend. Which, if you're looking for something to spend your gift certificate on, your gift card from the cancellation of the Grand Gathering, this would be a good time to use that. But that's all the news regarding Virtual GenCon right now. Let's talk about the tournament results from this past week. So we had 3 main tournaments that you could sign up for. We had, of course, Thursday, the Press 1P Invitational. The finalists for the Press 1P Invitational were Ian Chambers using Snake Pit, taking on the Grump Danny Thunder using El Super Hombre, that classic, starter set battle. And Snake Pit emerged as the victor. Ian Chambers wins, I believe, his second Press 1P Invitational. So he joins the ranks of Theo Neo and Chris Pate, where if you win 3, you are in line for some sort of LFF title shot potentially. We'll have to see. That was Thursday. Friday, we have the second Puzzles event hosted by Brian Wait For It Schmidt. Draft Night at Puzzles. This ended up being a 24-person tournament where each participant drafted from a list of 50 competitors. And after 4 Swiss rounds, there was a top cut to the top 8. The finalists ended up being Chris Pagillo using the Devil's Reject GPS, taking on Anthony Perry, the Cannoli, using Cyclone. Chris Pagillo ends up winning with the Devil's Reject GPS. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to Ian Chambers. I think I may have neglected to mention that. Congratulations to them. I am a little surprised that GPS was in the draft. I didn't notice this, but the idea behind the competitors that were available to be drafted were they were competitors that Brian Schmidt didn't see people win with. GPS has been used to win an online tournament, since the whole coronavirus thing started. The GPS actually won the Cannoli's Christmas in May event, the Escape the Cage / Escape the Christmas Tree. So this is now the second big tournament win for GPS. So I don't know if that was a bit of an oversight on his part or what, but it is kind of interesting that a tournament designed to produce a winner that had not won an event before ended up with a winner who had already won an event before. But that was Friday night. Saturday night, since I just mentioned the Cannolis Christmas in May, he held a second event, the Cannolis Christmas in July. The finalists here were Chris Pate using Gia de los Muertos and Dizzy La Pinta using Papa Wheelie. This is an interesting matchup because Gia's gimmick, when she stops a card, she draws a card. And Papa Wheelie's gimmick, when your opponent stops a card, your next turn rolls +2, work essentially in Papa Wheelie's favor. When Gia uses stops, because Gia is designed to be stop heavy, that helps Papa Wheelie win turn rolls. But Chris Pate was able to overcome this disadvantage and win. So Chris Pate wins the Christmas in July tournament. Congratulations to him. And finally, Brian Waite-Fortschmidt and TJ Marconi brought back the Boot Party that takes place Wednesday nights after Talk of the Universe. This time it was an 8-man impromptu tournament where they just randomly picked 8 people in the chat who were subscribers. I don't have a lot of details on that, but I know that Jeff McPeak ended up winning the Boot Party tournament. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to all the winners and all the players who went far and did well. That is our tournament news. As far as tournaments for next week, nothing has been posted, and I doubt that a lot will be posted because of Virtual GenCon weekend. I'm not expecting anything to happen Friday with the draft or Saturday with the top cut. They haven't announced anything else either going on, say for Sunday or Thursday, which would normally be days that where activities would happen if this was in-person Gen Con. I expect that there will be a Press 1P Invitational this Thursday. I mean, it's possible that they also end up doing a Boss Takeover. They haven't announced anything, but expect there to be something for Thursday. And this went live on the website last week, so it's the first time I can talk about it. BCW, Buckeye Championship Wrestling, my home territory, is hosting a Create a Competitor tournament. August 22nd. It's an in-person tournament, so not online, at our home store, Pixel Palace Games. The address is on the Super Show, the game, online events page. When you sign up, $30 entry fee. You must be there by noon, start time 12:30. There are 48 spots available. You will have to submit a deck list, and you are going to have to wear a mask when you show up. It will be Swiss rounds. There will be diversity. GM Calais and Grimm will be banned. As of right now, those are the only bans. There are 2 promo cards available. The brand new Fogbreaker and Chicken Wing Wonderplex. The last I checked, there's a little bit of a problem if you try to pick Fogbreaker as your promo card. So I would say try to pick it and then maybe put in a special request to let SRG know that you're picking Fogbreaker. But that's what's going on with BCW. As of right now, it appears there are plenty of spots available. So if you want to travel down to Columbus for a Create a Competitor tournament, we'd love to see you. But that's the upcoming tournament scene. I believe now is a good time to talk about competitors. Of course, we are getting ready to have new competitors coming out this weekend as part of the Virtual GenCon festivities. So it's only fitting I finish my review of the competitors that were released as part of the bundle for Virtual Origins. I went over 3 of them last week. The Ultimate Grump, Chibi, and the Lucha Maniacal Uberstar. I had talked about Baby Brick on a previous show. So let's go over the last 3. The Director of Operations, Dave Maruscsak, White Lily, and the Sawyer brothers. I will start with the man who is next in line for a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship, Director of Operations Dave Maruscsak. Here are the skills, and here is the gimmick. Power 6, Technique 10, Agility 9, Strike 5, Submission 7, Grapple 8. After you flip any number of cards, look at your opponent's hand, then you may bury one card in any player's discard pile. As always, I'll start with what I think you should play in the 13 through 15 slots. With a technique of 10, you would want to play a card like Single Leg Crab, or, because you have a grapple of 8, you could play a card like Beg for Mercy. Beg for Mercy is a skill card. You must have a grapple of 8 or greater to play it. It says if your technique is higher than your opponent's technique, stop when you strike. Place one card from your discard pile on top of your deck. It's the submission version of Alien Invasion or the Seven Seals. With an agility of 9, you're looking at running a card like Kick in the Corner. And with a grapple of 8, you could run DDT. It would just be up to you. But you could run 3 stops based on skills at the 13, 14, and 15 slots with the Director of Operations. The gimmick, after you flip any number of cards, look at your opponent's hand. Then you may bury one card in any player's discard pile. This will be very nice for hand knowledge. If you play Champion of Kickstarter, because you start the game flipping a card, you will be able, at the very beginning of the game, to see your opponent's hand. And then you have the option to bury the card you flipped if you want, or if your opponent also flipped because they played Champion of Kickstarter, you can bury that card. But yeah, there are a lot of great cards that allow you to flip. There's all those new flip stops that came out in the Kickstarter, where if you play them normally, each player flips one card. This would allow you to look at your opponent's hand, and then of course it flips a card so you have a card to bury. This card would trigger off any card in the Lariat series, any of the cards in the Armenian series, any of the Set Up the Table, Ladder, or Steel Chain cards. There are a lot of very good cards that will trigger this gimmick to allow you to look at your opponent's hand. So you're going to get a lot of knowledge of your opponent's hand using the Director of Operations. Let's go ahead and take a look at the finishes for Dave Maruscsak. We'll start with the finish strike. Number 28, Tech Wizard. +1 to agility, +3 to strike. Shuffle one card from your discard pile into your deck. +1 to agility increases your agility from a 9 to a 10. +3 to strike increases it from a 5 to an 8. So you'd have a 6, 7, 2 8s, and 2 10s. It's not bad. 2 out of 3 chance of rolling 8 or better. Shuffle one card from your discard pile into your deck. Just a nice bit of recursion. It's a solid finish. We'll look at the finish grapple next. Number 29, Disaster Recovery. +1 to power, +1 to submission. If this card is flipped during your turn, you may play it. Shuffle 3 cards from your discard pile into your deck. Draw 1 card. So if you play a follow-up that causes you to flip cards, or you have a follow-up in play and you play a lead that causes you to flip cards, you flip this, you get a play. Now, of course, you must have a follow-up in play to play this finish. You have to be able to play a finish legally for that part of the gimmick to work. But if you can, it's a nice bit of surprise, grapple out of nowhere. +1 to power and +1 to submission will increase your power from a 6 to a 7, and your submission from a 7 to an 8. So you'd have a 5, a 7, 2 8s, a 9, and a 10. It's not quite as good skill-wise as the strike, but it's not bad. It does have more recursion because you will be shuffling 3 cards into your deck instead of 1, and you get a draw. So nice bit of recursion here too. Let's look at the last card, the last finish to mission number 30. Turn it off and on again. +1 to submission, +1 to grapple. Your opponent cannot increase their breakout roll. I like the second part of the text. It's very reminiscent of DJ Outlaw's submission finish. +1 to submission increases the submission from a 7 to an 8. +1 to grapple increases the grapple from 8 to a 9. So 5, 6, 8, 2 9s and a 10. 50% chance of rolling 9 or better is good. And your opponent not being able to increase their breakout roll is good. So I would probably build around trying to hit the submission finish. I think it's a strong finish with that second part. Because again, not being able to increase your breakout roll not only prevents things like El Super Hombre's gimmick, or Pager Ragers, or cards like the Cash Out from Eddie Fury, it also prevents save rolls and tag or multiplayer matches from working. But that's Dave Maruscsak. Let's take a look at White Lily next. White Lily is a female competitor. Here are the skills and here's the gimmick. Power 6, Technique 8, Strike 10, Submission 5, Grapple 9. When you stop a card, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is the same move type as the card stopped, draw it. If it is not, put it back on top of your deck or bury it. I'll talk about the gimmick first. When you stop a card, you reveal the top card of your deck. So, if you stop a strike, you reveal the top card. If it's a strike, you can draw it. If it's not a strike, if it's a grapple or submission, you can either choose to put it on top of the deck or you can bury it. So this allows you, when you hit a stop, to see the next card you're going to get. Now, based on the way I understand gimmicks, if you were to play one of the draw stops, like, say, Backdrop, stop any submission, each player draws one card, you would complete the card first before your gimmick would trigger. So you'd stop the card, draw your card, then you would reveal the next card on top of the deck. So let's keep with that theme for a second. You play Backdrop. You stop a submission. You can't say, okay, I'm going to reveal the top card. If it's a submission, draw it and then draw the next card. If it's not a submission, say, okay, I do want this card, so I'm going to put it back on top of the deck and draw it. Or say, I don't want this card, I'm going to bury it and draw the next one. The draw would happen first. This is an interesting gimmick. It's similar to Gia de los Muertos. Hers just says simply when you stop a card, draw a card. This says you stop a card, you reveal the top card of the deck. If it matches what you stopped, type-wise, you stop a strike, you reveal a strike, you draw it. If it's not, it's up to you if you want to put it on top of the deck or bury it. So it's kind of an interesting variation on Gia de los Muertos. Skill-wise, Strike 10, Running Lariat is what I'd recommend. Grapple 9, recommend DDT. Your technique's an 8. So again, you could do single leg crab, or with a grapple of 9, you could choose to do Beg for Mercy. You qualify for that too. I would probably not do Beg for Mercy, but it's an option. But that's White Lily's skills and gimmick. Let's look at her finishes. We'll start with the finish strike, number 28, Sword Technique. +2 to power, +1 to technique, +1 to agility. If you stopped a card last turn, double these bonuses. Let's go through the skills. So normally, +2 to power would increase your power from a 6 to an 8. +1 to technique would increase it from an 8 to a 9. And +1 to agility increase it from a 7 to an 8. So you'd have a 5, 2 8s, 2 9s, and a 10. So normally, 50% chance to roll 9 or better. If you stopped a card last turn, double these bonuses. Double the bonuses, it would increase your 6 power to a 10, your technique 8 to a 10, and your agility 7 to a 9. So you would have a 5, 2 9s, and 3 10s if you were able to get the doubling to work. So that's really good. 5 out of 6 chance to roll 9 or better with Sword Technique. If you get the double to trigger, that's a very good finish. Let's look at the finish grapple, number 29, Redirecting Momentum. This just has skill bonuses. +2 to power, +3 to submission, +1 to grapple. Increases your power from a 6 to an 8, your submission from a 5 to an 8, and your grapple from a 9 to a 10. 7, 3 8s, and 2 10s. That's really good. 1 in 3 chance to roll 10, 5 and 6 chance to roll 8. That's a strong finish as well. Finally, the finish submission number 30, break the chains, plus 1 to all your skills. So you just go from 5 through 10 to 6 through 11. Does give you the ability to roll 11 at crowd meter 0, which if you're playing in a stipulation match could be quite strong. Give you an auto win in most scenarios. But that's White Lily. Interesting gimmick. Very situational. Finally, let's look at the lone tag team released as part of the Origins bundle, the Sawyer brothers. Here are the skills and here's the gimmick. Power 18, Technique 12, Agility 10, Strike 14, Submission 16, Grapple 20. Your agility is plus 2 for each grapple you have in play, max plus 6. Your breakout rolls are plus 1 for each grapple your opponent has in play, max plus 3. Looking at the 13 through 15, you have a grapple of 20, a card like DDT, where you'd stop a submission based off your grapple skill. Makes the most sense. Your power is 18. The stop that triggers off power is in the 14 slot, which is the same slot as the stop that triggers off grapple. So you probably will not be playing a stop there. With a 16 submission, you could think about playing a card like Bow and Arrow. So you'd have a stop based off your 20 skill and a stop based off your 16. That's a little iffy. But yeah, so you're running, I would say at most, 2 stops based off skills, 1 at 14 and 1 at 15. With your agility being plus 2 for each grapple you have in play, I would suggest playing cards that will allow you to get grapples easily. So something like, I believe it's Greco-Roman Takedown is the card. This is a lead grapple that when you roll grapple for your turn roll, you can add it to your hand. I believe there's also a version of that card where you can roll power and add it to your hand. So one of those 2 cards might be nice to run here, because when you get that grapple in play, you're going to get plus 2 to your agility. There's also a card at 23, Blindside Suplex. It's a skill card. You have to have a 8 or greater, or in the case of a tag team, a 16 or greater to play it in grapple. But it's also a card that when you roll grapple for your turn roll, you can add to your hand. Don't know if I'd play that card because of some things I'll talk about later, but that's the Sawyer Brothers skills, potential stop cards running 13 through 15, and I'll get into the gimmick a little bit more, but I like the gimmick. Every time you put a grapple in play, you get plus 2 to your agility. Let's go through the finishes. Start with the finish strike, number 28, Timber. Plus 6 to technique, plus 4 to strike. Choose odd or even. Your opponent reveals their hand and buries all card numbers of the chosen type. Plus 6 to technique will increase your technique from a 12 to an 18. Plus 4 to strike will increase your strike from a 14 to an 18. So it'll give you a 10, 16, 3 18s, and a 20. So a 2 out of 3 chance of rolling 18 or better is really good. Choose odd or even. Your opponent reveals their hand and buries all card numbers of the chosen type. It's going to depend on what you want to go for. If you're trying to get rid of finishes, assuming you don't see their hand before they make the choice. If you choose even, 2 out of 3 of the finishes are even numbers, the strike and the submission. So you'll have better odds of getting rid of the finishes. If you want to get rid of your opponent's ability to stop cards, you could choose odd, because the stop any cards in the game are the 13 through 15 series, the 19 through 21 series, and the 25 through 27 series. If you choose odd, all of the cards that stop grapples, the 3 strike cards to stop grapples, if they have them in the hand, they'll be buried. All of the cards that stop strikes. All these submission cards that stop strikes, if they have them in their hand, they'll be buried. So if you were trying to hit a finished strike or a finished grapple, and you don't want them to be stopped going forward, you will want to choose odd. If you're trying to get finishes out of your opponent's hand, you'll want to choose even. This is assuming that you don't have hand knowledge. If you know what's in their hand, it'll be easier to make the choice. If you played a follow-up, say, press slam, that you could run with an 18 power in the 20 slot. If you played press slam to be able to look at their hand, I'd make them get rid of their submission cards. That would actually make it so you could throw this strike on them. If you happen to win the roll afterwards, you're only getting +3. Not as effective in a tornado tag, but then you would know what's in their hand, so when you make the choice when this hits, it will be more devastating. That's the finished strike timber. Very good finish. The finished grapple, number 29. Welcome to the Sawmill. It is a spotlight card. It says your opponent's first and second breakout rolls are -1 for each card you have in play with fall or chop in the name. When this card is in your discard pile and your opponent has no grapples in play, your finish rolls are +1. Interesting card. I am not sure that I am a big fan of this, and I'll tell you why when I get to the end of talking about the finishes that come with the Sawmill Brothers. I mean, you could run cards like Knife Edge Chop, Falling Power Slam, although again I wouldn't give up the DDT for Falling Power Slam, giving up a stop based on your highest skill to play a stop based on your second highest skill to make this better. Fall Away Slam would probably be something you definitely want to pack in this deck for that. There's a number of other cards with Fall or Chop of the name. I just don't know how much you'd want to build around that. And then the second part that gives you +1 to your finish rolls if your opponent has no grapples in play and this card's in the discard pile. It's nice. It does give you the ability, if you have this in the discard pile at the start of the match or early on in the match, like crowd meter 0, and then you play another finish, you roll your 20 skill, it's now 21. It is almost impossible for your opponent to break out unless they have a card that increases their breakout rolls or some other method to increase breakout rolls. But I have reservations about this card. I think there's another one better. But let's go through the rest of these first. The finish submission number 30, Choke Setter, +4 to strike, +2 to submission. Your opponent buries 2 cards in their hand, then your opponent randomly buries 2 cards in their hand. So if you hit this, bonus-wise, +4 to strike increases the strike from a 14 to an 18, +2 to submission increases the submission from a 16 to an 18. So it would give you a 10, a 12, 3 18s, and a 20. 2 to 3 chance of rolling 18 or better is good. Your opponent would lose 4 cards in their hand. The first 2 they choose. The second 2 are random. So this could be a nice bit of a destructive of the hand. I like this card. Now, I've been unsure what I would want to do about the finish grapple, and I'll tell you why. The gimmick on the Sawyer Brothers gives you +2 agility for each grapple you have in play. There is the generic finish for tag teams, the double death drop, which says +6 to your 2 lowest skills. If you have a card with table in the name and play, your opponent buries 3 cards in their hand. Your 2 lowest skills are 10 and 12. If you have a grapple in play and you can bump your agility from a 10 to a 12, now your 2 lowest skills are 12 and 14. So if you have a grapple in play, let's say you decide to play set up the table in this deck to flip 4 cards, give you +1 to your finish rolls for table, and then you get back your double death drop. That's going to increase, if that's the only grapple you have in play, that increases your agility from a 10 to a 12. When you play double death drop, it's going to bump your agility from a 12 to an 18. It's going to bump your technique from a 12 to an 18. And it's going to bump your strike from a 14 to a 20. And then because you're getting +2 to agility for each grapple you have in play, if that's your second grapple, it's going to bump that agility from a 18 up to a 20. So now you'll have a 16, 2 18s, and 3 20s if you have double death drop and another grapple in play. That is really strong. 50% chance to roll 20, 5 out of 6 chance to roll 18. Your lowest possible roll is a 16. That's really strong. So to me, I would almost want to play double death drop instead of the finished grapple because the bonuses are so high. Once you get that agility up to 12 or even to 14, because when you hit that grapple, it's going to calculate based on the skills, I'm assuming before the gimmick kicks in, because the gimmick, from what I understand, is calculated last. I don't know, but if the double death drop's the second grapple in play, it's going to give you really high numbers for the Sawyer brothers. So I would almost think about playing double death drop instead of Welcome to the Sawmill. But that is it. We should be caught up on all the newly released competitors and ready to cover the next set of releases when they come out this weekend. And I believe that is going to do it for the show. Again, if you're looking for matches, there's always matches going on online. Just reach out through the Facebook groups and find opponents. And I'm looking forward to Virtual GenCon weekend. Thank you to all of you for listening, and good day.